that kickoff there, courtesy of our conversation yesterday with Coach Lwazi Mvovo. Once again, I can never thank you enough for making time, coming through and having these conversations. An hour just wasn't enough. We never actually got to the conversations we wanted to have, on the personnel and as well as the footballing talk, the actual 90 minutes talk that Sundowns have been going through, and perhaps the strategy moving forward with the amount of games they've got to play. Because an hour just, it whizzed by, didn't it? It really just went by so quickly, but the reaction from so many of you in that interview really appreciated. But like I said, we tend to put out snippets of conversations to entice you more than anything to go listen to the full conversation. So please, before you make any statements or you make decisions on the snippets, the 1 minutes that we send out there, I implore you to go listen to the full interview. Especially when it comes to sensitive matters, as many as you have. Go listen to the full interview, and then after that, hey, there's nothing I can do then. Then you're more than entitled to your full opinion of whatever parts of the interview that you would like to talk about. Today, though, it's a Throwback Thursday, and with the World Cup around the corner, we decided, you know what, let's go a little bit rugby, but let's not talk rugby. Let's talk the story of a rugby player. Former Springbok and Sharks winger is going to be joining us. I can't wait for that conversation, because it's always so interesting when you listen to black rugby players and you hear back about their experiences in this white-dominated sport that we as South Africans do so well at. That's the conversation. It's a Throwback Thursday on the Mighty Metro FM. This is Sports That Amplified with Andile. I am Andile Ncube. Today is your favorite show of the week. It's Throwback Thursday on Sports That Amplified. And last week, we did a Throwback Thursday that was quite current. We looked back to the injury of Bernard Parker with TS Galaxy president Tim Sugazi. The other week, though, we told the ancient story. Still feel like there's so much more in that story, and I'd love to go into it a little bit more as well. But it was the story of the history of AmaZulu Football Club. How it became AmaZulu Football Club from Zulu Royals. And we spoke to Eric Ndunagandaba, and he spoke about the split of the club then. It was a fascinating conversation of the history that is so rich in KwaZulu of AmaZulu Football Club. Tonight, though, we tell a story of a young black man that started playing football as a striker, and many thought that he'd make it as far as Bafana even, the big clubs, because apparently he was that good as a left back. Highly, highly pacey. But why didn't he go all the way there? Because he didn't. But he did make rugby history. He did make rugby history, and perhaps it was the right decision after all. Made his debut against England and was part of the 2015 Rugby World Cup squad, 17 test matches, and a legend at the Sharks. Lwazi Mvovo joins us for our conversation today. Lwazi, thank you so much for joining us, man. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Lwazi. It's so real after when you mentioned all of that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a rewind, isn't it?
It is. Look, but I had fun, man. I had fun.
When you look back, since you started with the reflections, when you look back at your career, when you look back at who you are, where you're from, and you look at the career you had, if you're telling it to your 12-year-old, 15-year-old son who says, hey, who were you? How do you sum up what you did, who you were in those years as a Bok player?
I think I gave it all. I never left any stones unturned in terms of the opportunity I had. I just wanted to give it all, man. I think when we grew up in the era where there's so much that distract, especially professional players, off the field. So I think the sacrifice that I did, I'm happy with what my decisions are.
Left no stone unturned. I like that. So you look back at your career quite fondly. Just over a decade, you got to play in the World Cup as well. Amazing. But before we get there, I want to go back a little bit, because the reason I got so interested in this story is I heard and I read about how it was nearly football.
Yeah. It was. So I grew up in the village in Dabangulu. And obviously there was no rugby prior. I mean, I was 10. I was in the village, Esapwandugu, and that's where we played soccer. So if you went looking after our grandparents' cows on the field, we were playing soccer, and I became quite good at it because I enjoyed it. But one thing that kind of stood out, which was my speed. I had was quicker than the other gents, as Lalini. And I think that's where the journey starts. And I mean, in 1996, the African Cup of Nations, I watched that with my mom when Mark Williams scored that winning goal. So
the Tunisia match.
Yes, I mean, when Kaizer Chiefs came to play at Independence Stadium against Bushbucks, we would get in for free as youngsters. So. When that goal, I can't remember who scored it, but it was against Potenda Esher, where he went down to pick the ball up and it just bounced in front of him, and that's how we lost Kaizer Chiefs. That's how Kaizer Chiefs lost. So, I grew up a soccer fan. I enjoyed my soccer days. I played soccer.
And so, what happens? When do we lose you in the football fraternity? You're a quick player. I hear you played left back at the time. Yes, the Springboks gained from you, but why leave the football? You were so good at it. I mean, and from those I spoke to, they said you could have gone far in football.
Yes, look, I wanted to. Obviously, my dream was to play for Bafana Bafana. I mean, as an 11-year-old, I got called to Bushbucks.
This, I mean, people might be listening to you now like, Bushbucks. No. This was Umtata Bushbucks. Turu's Umtata Bushbucks.
Umtata Bushbucks, Rabo. And so also I went to, obviously, high school, 15-year-old, played England, Ebola, under 15. But we didn't have the under 16. So you would go from under 15 straight to open. And when I got to the open, I mean, there were a lot of bullies, in schools. So there were a lot of bullying. I mean, I practiced the first team as a 16-year-old, but after that, I just, I'm not going to stand for it. I stopped playing sports, actually, because I played a bit of cricket. So I just stopped playing sports, and then I paid more attention to athletics. Because again, I was more quicker than the other gents. My friends were actually playing rugby, some of them, and some of them were playing soccer. But at 16, I didn't do any sport. I just did athletics. And then grade 11, my friends, my first team coaches saw me doing athletics, and then he was like, "Hey, bro, just come try it out. Just stand on the wing." There's not a lot of contact because I was scared of contact, to be honest.
I can imagine, because I always look at wingers and I'm like, the guts you've got to have looking at some of those frontliners and say, okay, fine, I'm going to go smash into those people, because you're the smallest, you're amongst the smallest on that field.
Yes. I remember watching a game actually, and I was like, there is no way I'm going to play this sport. So the coach kind of convinced me he's just going to stand there. And when I kid you not, the first time I touched a ball, rugby ball, I literally ran around everyone, and I thought, oh wow, this can be fun.
Love at first sight?
I'm saying I literally ran around everyone.
So what I'm saying is it was obviously love at first sight when you held that ball. It was like, yes, this is it.
Yeah. No, it was. And in high school, how everyone will shout, look at what he did. And actually, more of actually the soccer fan came across to rugby. And our team...
That's why we're struggling. Well. It's your fault. You took our soccer players away. Lwazi Mvovo was talking to us, former Springbok and Sharks winger. We're talking about the story of his career, and also we'll be looking forward to the Springboks journey on Saturday with him. Let's take a quick break. It's exactly 18:25 on the Mighty Metro FM. Remember, if you miss any conversations that we have here in the show and you want to catch up on it, be it Monday when the three wise men, not always so wise, are in the building, you can always just, on Tuesdays perhaps, or Wednesdays when we focus fully on football, Thursdays when we tell stories of extraordinary South Africans or ordinary South Africans who have gone on to do extraordinary things. All you have to do is go to the Metro FM website and just look up Sports That Amplified with Andile. If you want to see the visual one, just go to Andile Ncube on YouTube. We've also got a Facebook page. We've got an Instagram page as well. Then you can see the show visually as we do it here in the studio with all my guests that do come in. Right now, though, Lwazi Mvovo is our guest, former Springbok and Sharks winger, a man that has done amazing things in the game of rugby. Made his debut against England and was part of the 2015 Rugby World Cup squad. 17 test matches and known largely as a legend out at the Sharks. Lwazi was just detailing, his upbringing and how he met and came into contact with this thing called rugby. And that's where we are at the moment. But, Lwazi, I'm not surprised, when you look at, and then I grew up around the Eastern Cape a little bit, now and then, here and there. I was in and around the Eastern Cape. Soccer has always taken a backseat to where I was at Buffalo, and mostly, in some areas of Umdanzane, it was cricket first, in fact. Then boxing, then perhaps rugby and football coming third and fourth. Was that experience different to you in terms of the hierarchy of sport growing up?
No, it actually wasn't. So I'm involved in coaching in the KZN, KwaZulu Natal, and the joke kind of joke that we always make about the Eastern Cape is you always see more rugby post and rugby field than soccer fields when you drive around the Eastern Cape, and it in terms of the talent and the players that you got Osia, Umagazole, Lucanio, those players are from the Eastern Cape, and they started playing in the Eastern Cape. And then obviously you got legends who played the game, also Ncube Mays, so rest in peace, that we looked up to, or our corner. So it is a culture thing that there's more rugby than soccer in the Eastern Cape.
What's the little one's name there with you?
This is Lwandle, my 2-year-old.
Oh, 2 years old. Lwandle, what's the full name, Galwandle?
Lwandle, that's the full name.
That's the full name, Lwandle.
Yes,
is it a girl or a boy? Because that could be anything, really, the name. If I don't know, Andile.
it's a gay, yeah, for the Andile, it can be a 4-year-old. But she's always here with me. Like, I just walked in from coaching, so we're doing the development in Nanda. So she was sleeping, so now she just wants to be here with us.
Are you surprised at how KZN, and perhaps maybe the Sharks more so, have embraced and accepted you and taken you in as the son of the soil? And literally, I mean, when you speak about your name and KZN and the Sharks, it goes hand in hand with greatness. It goes hand in hand with legendary status.
No, I'm not. But obviously, I'm humbled and honored. But I feel like Durban, KZN is my home in terms of that's where I played most of my rugby. I mean, I played 3 years in the Eastern Cape, grade 11, 12. And then I played under 19 border, and then I've been in Durban ever since. So I've learned a lot of things in Durban, and I mean there's also so much talent that is coming through. I mean, to see youngsters on the field and training, and obviously when they're running, they're shouting your name, black and white. So that's kind of special. Very special.
Black or white, black and white, and also black and white, the colors, of course, that you wore for so long. But Springboks, let's talk about the Springboks a little bit, because the country at the moment, array with Springboks, talking about them. The World Cup is coming. The first black person I ever saw in green and gold, Chester Williams, of course, because I was introduced to the game in 1995. Not through any of the matches, but the final. We didn't watch any of the matches at the time. Then we're gonna done some Zimkhulu. I remember very well at Kukwini in a little in a little black and white TV powered by a car battery. And so I didn't even know that their colors were green and gold for a long time, to be very honest, because black and white, you're down. But at some point, I think one of the adults in the room says, "Do you see this guy here? He's black." And I thought, what? Because you heard the name Chester Williams, and to my very young ears, that was a very white name. Everybody else was white, so I didn't expect that there'd be a black person. What is your first experience with the rugby and blackness?
I think for me it was the 2003 World Cup, obviously with Ashton Willemse, being a wing, and then again I remember in 2005 I was at Boradek in East London, and I kid you not, every time I've got some time or spare time, I would go to the computer rooms and Google Brian Habana, because I thought, gee, how is this guy so quick? I mean, there's a try which I always enjoy. He was playing against Australia, where I think it's got 2 tries, but long range tries from our own try line. Now that was, I'll tell you a little story. That was 2005. The plot twist is 5 years later, I replaced Brian Habana against Scotland. He was starting for Scotland, and he at training he pulled I think it was a hamstring, and he had played from 2005 to until 2010. He was the number 11, and for me to put on that jersey after he just obviously, unfortunately for him, he suffered an injury. It was something unreal, to be honest.
Yeah, you can't explain those things. I mean, I tell people all the time that, I sit and I speak to Dr. Khumalo as an analyst. Like, he sits across from me and I speak to him, and it's surreal every time. When people that used to be back in our day, the poster on your wall are now, you don't even know. Like, it's such a surreal moment. It's unexplainable. And Brian Habana, he did a lot for you in your game.
Yeah, he did, and I think, like I always say, the culture of the sport is. I mean, when there's youngsters coming through, you're not a youngster if you put on that green and gold jersey, and that has been for many years, whereby you don't feel like you're not part of anything. You are part of a bigger picture, because the Springboks believe in winning rugby. So that requires, whether you're 19, you're front staying a 19-year-old playing with Victor Medfield, the 35-year-old. We all aiming in one goal and try to achieve one thing.
Let's drop some names. Who was part of that team when you entered? I mean, we've mentioned Brian, there's Vic Matt. Who else was part of that crew when you came in?
I think the don't judge a book by its cover was, for me, Upaki Porter.
Big Buckies, yeah.
I mean, we've always seen Upaki playing hard and being hard on the field. He's that scary guy. And to walk into a Springbok camp, and you probably find one of the nicest person you ever meet in your life. I've
never met Buckies. Are you serious?
I am so serious. And I was like, oh wow, I thought I was gonna see this big tall guy who's always angry. And you find guys like Jean de Villiers, John Smith, obviously Brian Habana, and you find that it's people who are, they're not robots. They're down to earth, and they're always willing to help. And I think that's what stands out mostly about the Springbok. And the Springbok culture is there's always in Xhosa ibuzo kabayaziyo. So there's always experienced guys willing to help the youngsters because they understand the pressure that they're under.
You know, you then come into this when Lwazi, but it doesn't come aloneness, right? It comes with fame, it comes with attention, but it also comes with monetary compensation for what you're doing, correct? You know, you get paid for this, and handsomely so. How does a boy that comes from where you come from in the Eastern Cape, you know, from the sort of parents, whether our parents were doing well or not, they were not doing well to the effects of the kind of money that we then start earning at that time. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with having that much money? Where do you get your financial literacy? Where do you get your how to deal with fame?
I think for me the fortunate thing was obviously attending the Sharks Academy, whereby you can just train on the field, but you are taught about this about finance, about the off-field stuff, about the attention of the field and how to kind of deal with it. Not obviously saying that you're always going to get it right, but there is some financial advisors that will hold classes at the academy that did back then and that still do now. So when you get to that the type of money, you are kind of prepared. Yeah.
Do you think it's because that football has, obviously because of the country that we live in, we know it's the biggest sport in terms of following and you know, black people, obviously, you know, it's the number one sport with the majority of South Africans. Do you think that's the reason why? Or maybe it's a different grooming in rugby and cricket and the more so white dominated sport that we don't know maybe some of the ills that happen within rugby, because within football, obviously, we'd know as soon as one player goes out to have a drink, you know, the whole country knows, oh, he had 2 drinks and a shot. Disciplinary things within football. Oh, look at this player. He's gone and done that. And maybe the attention is not paid more to rugby players, even the young ones, because everybody makes mistakes. Or is there just a better disciplining and a better upbringing from a rugby point of view? You played both, only one professionally, but what do you make as the two differences between these codes?
I think there's a massive difference, to be honest, and I think we ex-players and coaches, both from the sporting codes. I remember when I played with the Sharks, I mean, Neil Tovey would come around and kind of ask the questions. I mean, obviously trying to bridge the gap between the two codes, whereby how do we, as rugby players, react to certain things? How do we, like you just said now, there's hardly anything in the newspapers. And now it could be discipline, but also maybe it could be planning, or it could be whereby we do a team buildings, whereby we go to an individual's house, we go to a coach's house, and I think the good thing about I mean the Sharks, where we had sponsors by, we were sponsored by, I don't know if I can mention the names, but it's companies that you can't drive if you're drunk. So there are those steps that are taken just to make sure that this is a brand. If you think about it, if you play for the Sharks, if you play for the Chiefs or Pirates, you are a brand. Now, what can the union, or what can the Sharks, or what can the club do to protect you and make sure that they get the best of you off the field? Also, because at times you will find that if you're producing well on the field, that's where it ends. But it's a holistic way. But remember, Brendan Fenter, our coach, we wouldn't worry about what we're doing on the field, but it was more concerned about how's your family, how's things at home. So you get to feel being part of something, and obviously I think unions and clubs. You can learn a lot from each other, from the different sporting codes.
Lwazi Mvovo was our guest, former Springbok and Sharks winger, now retired, of course, and he's coaching at the moment. We're going to be speaking to him about the Springboks this coming weekend. We're looking back at an amazing career, one that saw him play in the Rugby World Cup back in 2015. An understudy to Brian Habana for the longest time, got his opportunity, and that got him playing 17 test matches. And it's exciting to always look back at a well-served career and congratulate those that have hung up their boots, but we never forget what they did. Hey, you can download the SABC Plus platform, register on the OTT platform for free. You can watch the Cricket World Cup, the Rugby World Cup final on Saturday, and catch up on your favorite series episodes for free. Visit www.sabc.co.za for more. The OTT platform is also available for download on Apple App Store and on Google Play. Every single weekend, we watch Bafana games, watch all these games, and people are like, Andile, I can't find it. Where is it? I've just told you where it is. Go download it and enjoy peaceful viewing. It's 1842 on the Mighty Metro FM. Welcome to it. It's Sports Night Amplified with Andile, speaking to former Springbok and Sharks winger Lwazi Mvovo. 17 test matches, played his first one against England, went on to have just over 200 games. Remember, you stopped at 200, but then you went back, right, with the Sharks?
Yes, I think it is more than 200.
Yeah, I mean, I remember 200 was the stop, and then they said, hey, come back, man.
Yeah, with the Curry Cup and Super Rugby combined.
So then it went skyrocketing. But that first game versus England, do you remember it?
Yes, it was actually the second game.
Was that the second? Which was the first?
The first was against Scotland in a wet, rainy Scottish, and we actually lost that game.
What do you remember about it? The night before, you're going to be wearing that green and gold. So tell me a little bit more about just that game.
So I think for me it was more of the support from home and my mom who was always she would drive from Mthatha to East London for 20 minutes trials and drive back to Mthatha. So it was.
And I hate that road, Lwazi, to be honest. Absolutely the worst drive in this country, that road. For her to go all the way there for that 20 minutes, amazing.
Yeah, so my family was my why. So I always tell the youngsters, it gets tough. And actually in life and in sport. Now, if you don't have a why, then you can easily give up. So my family and my family from Andile, where I grew up, they were on my mind. I mean, they were, actually when I got mentioned, I got named in the team that I'm going to be starting. I mean, the sacrifices they made, and also cheering and driving to Durban, and obviously that year having won the Curry Cup. In Durban, so was very special for me, and just being a black South African playing for Springbok and kind of opening the doors for the youngsters who were behind me.
One of those youngsters who were behind you, and you can correct me, but I'm pretty sure Makazola Mapimpi must have been just behind you at the time.
2010. No, I think it was still in school. It was still in high school.
Imagine.
Yeah.
She was. You watch him now. What do you think? I mean, you look at these players, and I know there's so many great white players, and we take nothing away from them. But when you look at, because we need to identify with somebody. There needs to be something that young Sibusiso, young Andile, Lwazi out there, when they look at and they say, hey, it is possible for me. When you look at the breed of Springboks that we've had of late, I mean, Siya Kolisi is such an exemplary person. Makazola Mapimpi, Ox, we can go on and on and on. The legacy of Black Box has really, really, really been something spectacular. I feel like You can be you can be any white guy, and you can make it with the Springboks. And no offense to that, because I mean it's been like that since the beginning of time. But you have to be an exceptional black person to make it there.
Yes, serious. I think the struggle. I mean, I think all the black players can write a book in terms of being at times being overlooked. Where you knew that you're supposed to be in the team. And I remember when I go to Durban, I played under 20Bs the whole season at the club, and I knew the guy who played under 28. I was better than him, but I think their dad and the coach were friends. Those
probably went fishing together, yeah.
They were fishing together, doing everything together. But for me, and I mean, there's so many players that can tell you stories, whereby you just get substituted, or you get told you're not playing the following week just because maybe they don't trust you under the rain, or it's wet, or just little excuses that when you look back, you just can't help but laugh. I mean, I remember when I got to Durban, I met one of the like someone who actually became a Springbok, and so he kind of asked me what became a Springbok, as a Springbok legend. So we were part of the academy, and he was like, so what are you going to be trying for? I'm a 20-year-old and saying everything I try for under 21, and he looked at me in the eye and he said, "You're too small. I don't think you'll ever make it in rugby." So there are those challenges, and like you just mentioned, whereby you have to literally play out of your sock just to be seen or given a chance.
Incredible, but yeah, here we are. We've gifted the Springboks with some of the best black men over and above just being absolutely amazing rugby players. Speaking of which, let's hear what Jacques Nienaber had to say on the 7-1 split for the game that we're going to be playing the final this Saturday. I want to hear your views on it, but have a listen to this first.
The team is not 15 and our team is 23. We always say that. We select a squad. And when you do a squad selection, there's a lot of things that influences that. And probably from medical to performances to past performances. And obviously a lot of analysis going into New Zealand, what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and where we think we can get the edge on them, you know. So obviously, and then the discussion starts between the coaches and the selectors. And then it goes from a 5-3 to a 6-2 to a 7-1 back to a 5-3, 6-2. So it's not a 10-minute discussion. It's hours and hours, you know. And probably if you look at our squad, obviously there will be a couple of questions on it. So Vincent Koch couldn't train on Monday, and we have a policy in our team: if you can't train on Monday, you're not up for selection. So unfortunately, he then missed out with Trevor coming in for him. And then secondly, so everybody, the other guys are all medically fit.
That's it. The 7-1 split then was birthed from that. You saw the 15, you saw the 23. What was your first thought?
I wasn't surprised, to be honest. I wasn't surprised, and I think I mean I was part of the alignment camp when Rossi came in as a coach, and I think after one meeting I had so much confidence in him that I actually said, you know what, we're going to win the World Cup in 2 years' time. That was 2017, and we won the World Cup in 2019. So they always have a plan, and their plan is through analyzing a lot of teams and trying to find loopholes, obviously, and knowing that what the Springbok brand is in South Africa. It is about winning and understanding the responsibility. So I know they've got a plan.
Well, they might. That plan includes, Manny Liebach not being part of the team this time around, and it's been one of those very contentious matches throughout the World Cup. Does he start? Doesn't he start? And as soon as Andre Pollard came in and showed the form and experience that he has, it almost became black and white as to what we're going to be seeing with Manny. Here is the coach now explaining dropping Manny.
Sports Night Amplified with Andile on Metro FM.
Andre was injured. That was the big reason why Mane had to step up, and fair play to him. He is a brilliant rugby player. But unfortunately, if we would have gone with a 5-3 split, he would have played. But unfortunately, like I said, for him and for Kobus, they are unlucky because of the tactics that we think we want to employ. I must say, I don't think World Cups might be, probably now that I'm saying it will be different, but World Cup finals isn't necessarily always the most spectacle of affairs. So if you look at the past games, it's always going to be tight, and I think this one is going to be tight, and it's going to be a grind.
Yeah, no, listen, World Cup finals, very much like football finals, don't count Saudi Arabia. It's always just horrible games. It's never the greatest of matches. It's always very tight, very technical matches. But Manie Libbok being dropped, he says he came in because Andre was injured. We gave him a chance, and Andre Pollard now takes over. What do you make of that?
Yeah, look, I think he says it. I mean, it was just unlucky if they went for the 5-3 split, the Mane would be in the team. So he did mention tactics. So I'll take you back to Twickenham before the World Cup, where the 7 split was kind of first introduced into world rugby by Jacques Minaba and if you remember the score, they had a plan and they executed. So Mane was playing in that game, so he was the fly-off, and there was no other fly-off on the bench. So you kind of accept it and accept that they do have a plan, and I'm confident, and I think the type of forwards that we have, the type of physicality that South Africans have, they'll take us across the line.
7-1, no money, World Cup final against a team that, yes, we beat at Twickenham, badly so. They came into the World Cup injured. France even, rubbed more salt into their wounds. But when you look at what New Zealand have done since then, you can't still think of them in the Twickenham game or in the France game. With that in mind, what do you think of the final?
So the rivalry between South Africa and New Zealand goes way back. I mean, into 1995 World Cup. So when we team play, whatever happened last week doesn't matter. It's a different week. It's a different game. Everything is different, so you can't judge on how the Springboks played last week. You can't judge how New Zealand played last week. It's a totally different ball game. Now, it is going to be physical. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be physical. It's not going to be the difference, the point difference. If it won't even be more than 10. I don't think it will be 10, 9, or even 6.
I mean, the last 2 games have been just 1, so hey.
Yes. But I think the plan we have, and also, I mean, the weather plays a massive part where I feel like the backs are not really going to get a ball. That's just my thinking. We're going with the 7-1 split. And in New Zealand also kind of won't be comfortable to play that side-to-side rugby that they always play. They're not going to play it. I'm not saying that, but I don't think they'll be very comfortable. Now, it goes back to how dominant your forwards will be. I think the team with the most dominant forward will win the game.
Listen, man, Lwazi, we appreciate you. Appreciate your story, and hours never enough to be able to tell it. And we started off with asking you, what do you make of your entire career? But it was only just a chapter of your story, because there's so much more that you're still going to do. We reached out to some of our colleagues here in media to say, hey, guys, when you think of this man, what do you think? And one that you know very well, I'm pretty sure, Sbu Mjikeliso, said, hey, Andile, man, I'd like to say something about this man. Have a listen to what Sbu had to say about you.
First and foremost, it's Sibusiso Mjikeliso here. When you talk about Lwazi Mvovo, geez, You're talking about a legendary player there. A guy who started off playing soccer, and his career in rugby actually, relative to many careers, started late in his teens. But you could never tell the way he blossomed, the way he carried the ball from the wing, his speed, that electrifying pace. Lwazi Mvovo. Geez, I've hardly seen too many players that can beat 3-4 players on their debut against England at Twickenham. Brian Habana did it, and Lwazi Mvovo did it. Legend of the Sharks, many Springbok test matches, could play wing and fullback. It was such a pleasure when I was a journalist in Durban covering the Sharks at the time when Lwazi Mvovo, JB Peterson, Pat Lambie and those guys were in that Sharks team. Real honor, and a gent of a person, absolute gentleman of a person. Well done on an amazing career, and I hope your coaching career and other endeavors bring you as much success as you had on the rugby field.
He's not the only one, when Lwazi. Khotso Sello also said, hey man, let me say something. Rugby analyst, of course, and a man that studied your career so well. Have a listen.
Yo, when I think of Lwazi Mvovo, I think one of the most electric runners I've ever seen. He had like this perfect running style, almost like an athlete on a track. And he could change direction at will. You know, he'd almost swerve around his opponent. And he was extremely quick. You couldn't be able to ankle tap him because he'd have this high running knee action. And you know, the longer his career progressed at the Sharks, I think, you know, he started putting in these big hits. I'm not quite too sure about his kicking, because a few used to skew off his left boot. But what a fantastic player, and one of those players that youngsters used to look up to.
Lwazi, you are appreciated, man. You really are. And you gave up so much to entertain us. And now you get the time. And that's why it was bittersweet having your daughter a part of this conversation, because you get to do that now. You know, things that you couldn't do throughout your career. Now you get to do it. And it's beautiful to see. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything. And one day when you're in Joburg, please come to the studio. And let's let people call in and talk to you and talk about you, and let's celebrate you properly.
Thank you very much. Yes, most definitely. I'll do that the next time I'm in Joburg. And yeah, I think there's so much to give back through the chat. There's so much that the upcoming youngsters can learn, and I think that's one of the reasons why I got involved in the Sharks Academy, where I'm accessible, where anyone can ask questions. And I love giving back. That's what I want to do, man. And whether it's coaching, whether it's chats, I'm willing to do that.
And tell all the youngsters that I inspired you with the dreadlocks, just that yours could never be as great as what mine were. Don't forget. Lwazi, I appreciate you. Zazingakhulu zakho. Ozinxiba ngesitshiko mtshana. Lwazi Mvovo, appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. From all of us here in studio. Bona, le mapara, phela ngantsomi.